this is Jennifer here at the Hampton Park Library with another episode of Roots and Readers. Today we're going to be talking about thinning out the seedlings that you started and transplanting them outside in the garden in your beds. Today we're going to be thinning the seedlings. Because we wanted the best possible chance for germination, we planted more than one seed in each pot. Now that they're taller and they've started to put out a second leaf, you can see right here, there's a second, one of the true leaves came out. Since most of them have their second leaves out, it's time to go ahead and thin them. Now, we can't have them growing too close to each other because they can stunt the growth of each other whenever they're too close. So we need to leave one sprout in each of our seed pods here. Before, when my light was too hot, as you can tell, some of them got too tall too quickly and their stems just would not hold them up. In this first pot, I have to pick the strongest seedling, the one that's most likely to survive. I'm going to choose the smaller one here, this one right here, because it has got a stronger stem. This one got too tall too fast, and I'm going to thin this one out. This one is growing out of the side and the bottom of the pot. One of the seeds must have fallen down in there, and that one's not likely to survive, and it does not look as strong or robust as this one. So in this pot, this is my favorite. This is the one I think is going to have the best chance of survival, so I'm going to thin these out. With this one down in the corner, it's easy just to grab it and pull it out, and I don't have to worry about damaging any other roots nearby. However, if you'll notice, these are growing very close to each other. If I pull this one out, it might damage or affect the roots of this one or loosen them, and this one might fall over or not survive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small pair of clippers here, and I am just going to clip the stem of the one that I'm thinning out. That tiny stem that's left will just die back, and there won't be any damage or interference with the roots of this one. So this one is done. Now the one next to it, both of these grew too big too quickly. So I'm looking, I don't know if they're going to survive or not. I'm going to give them a shot. This one has a bigger leaf and seems to be a little perkier than the one next to it. So I'm going to leave this one and hope for the best when it's time to transplant them outside. So I'm going to be thinning this one away. Again, I'm going to clip it, and that doesn't affect the roots of this one, and this small little stem will die back. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to thin all of these, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. I want to show you real quick, this is one of the pots that our seedlings are planted in. If you look carefully, you can see that they already have roots growing out the side here. And if you'll look at the top of them, they both look strong, sturdy. They both have a secondary leaf coming out on top. And I have to decide which one I'm going to cut. So what I'm doing with this one is I'm looking at these stems, and this stem looks thicker and stronger than this stem. So since everything else is equal, I'm going to be cutting this one because I think this one has a better chance to grow. And it does hurt me to thin these, but if you don't, then they will not thrive and they will not grow as well as they can. okay. All of the broccoli, the cabbage, and the lettuce have been thinned out. Looks much better. The plants look a lot stronger and a lot healthier, and they're not all growing entangled with each other. Some of them are still leaning over, and I decided to give them a shot, see what's going to happen. But it looks like we do have a sprout in all of these. So I think there are a couple coming out late in this one. So I will probably be keeping that one back and watching for it so I can thin things out a little later. This is the pile of the seedlings that were thinned out. As you can see, a lot more was thinned out than what we kept. But again, in order to get the full, robust, healthy vegetables that you want, you do have to thin them out. Now over here with the green onions, they are looking long and leggy, but that is the top of a green onion. They are not too long yet. When they get a little bit longer, what I will do is I will cut them back a bit in order to encourage them to send out more leaves. That'll actually help make their leaves stronger as well. As far as thinning them out, that doesn't really work too well to do what I did over here with clipping them down, because again, it's just going to make them grow more leaves and stronger leaves. It doesn't actually kill their plant when you chop them down. So I will have to thin them out a different way. I will have to actually thin them out by pulling them out. But they're not quite ready for that yet. So that is how to thin your seedlings. It's a beautiful day out here in our community garden. Got butterflies over in the flower section, but what I wanted to talk about today is our seedlings. We are starting the hardening process. What this means is that we are bringing them out to the garden outside for a few hours a day. Each day they're going to be out a little longer than the next. And what this does is it lets them gradually get used to the sunlight so that they don't shrivel or burn up because they're not used to direct sunlight. So we're going to be putting them out here for longer and longer periods of time each day and get them used to the sunlight and the fresh air. The wind blowing through the seedlings will help them strengthen their stems, and we're getting them ready to transplant soon. Here we are back outside. It's time to go ahead and transplant the seedlings that we have already thinned and we've already gotten hardened and ready to come outside full time. It's time to go ahead and put them in the ground now. I'm going to start right here with my 2 lettuce beds. They did get a little long and leggy before I got my grow light fixed, so I'm hoping for the best. And I'm going to be putting them in these beds. Now these beds are not the best for lettuce because they're not full sun. However, not all of my beds were full sun, so I kind of had to make do with what I've got. So I'm going to try them here. I chose to go ahead and put the lettuce here because it's been hot lately. And I figured the partial shade beds would be the coolest of all of the beds. And lettuce does love cool weather. So I'm going to start and I'm going to put my lettuce in these beds and we'll see what happens with them. Keep your fingers crossed. So I'm just going to place it. I've pre-dug my holes. I've done the right spacing that we checked and we planned out before. So I'm dug a little deeper like I did before in the other transplant videos. I've dug a little deeper than I really need. So I'm going to put a little bit more dirt down here under my seedling. This is going to make sure that the roots can grow down into softer soil right here. They're not going to have to battle their way through thicker, deeper, compact soil. And I'm just going to place the entire pot in here. Make sure that I don't bury my seedling. And I don't want to put it too deep because that stem does need to be on top here. I am going to go ahead and put some up here around it because this is an overcast day and we're going to be getting some rain today and things are going to settle around it and I don't want it completely uncovering it. So there's our first lettuce seedling. Wish it luck, guys. Okay, so we've got our first bed of lettuce planted right here. It's kind of hard to see them. They're really small, but they are going to grow hopefully much larger. I put my little tag in here to remind everybody what's in this bed. After planting them in this bed, I've decided that the next batch I'm going to remove the netting from. As I was turning over the beds and mulching and weeding, I noticed some of these cups from last year or the year before where the netting didn't break down. I did some research online and there are kind of two schools of thought on what to do with the netting for these cups. Some people say that's fine, as the roots grow, they will break through the netting, and that's not a problem. Everything's good, and the netting will break down. If the plant or the seedling does not survive, it may not tear apart, and you may still find these cups. Some people don't mind, they just plant them the way they are. Some people will tear it and will just plant the seedling directly in the ground. The people that don't like to do that don't do it because they feel that it tears the roots that have already come through the netting and damages the roots. Since I have two beds here for lettuce, I decided to try an experiment. I'm going to leave the netting on this bed, and I've already planted them with the netting on it, and I'm going to remove the netting from the seedlings that I plant in this other bed. And just to see what happens, whether some grow stronger, some don't grow as well. I'm just curious to see what happens. Okay, so this is the pot for the bed. The netting does tear very easily. I'm just peeling it off very carefully, trying not to disturb any roots. This one doesn't have a lot of roots coming through, but I do see a few tiny white ones here, so this should not be too big a problem. May not be able to see it on the video, but there are a few white roots coming through. So I've taken the netting off. I'm going to dispose of that, and I'm just going to plant this seedling without it. Again, I'm going to keep the seedling up. I don't want it to be buried when I move everything in around. I'm going to support that stem. And I want to make sure I get the soil all around it. I don't want too much mulch around it. It needs the nutrients from the soil. But I am going to put some mulch up on top of the soil to help keep the moisture in. Because when I'm finished planting all of these seedlings, I'm going to water the bed really, really, really well. Okay. Our lettuce is planted. So now, in this bed, I'm going to be doing the broccoli. I've got our broccoli plants here. These seedlings, again, they got a little too tall before I got the grow light fixed. But they've got their primary seed leaves. The first ones will come out, and these are the secondary leaves. These have the ridges, they're lobed, and this is going to be what most of the future broccoli leaves coming out look like. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plant the broccoli in this bed. I've got the holes already dug here again. So I'm going to plant it right here. And again, I want to get that mulch right up here on top to keep the moisture in. And if you'll notice, I've left something growing here. It looks like I left a weed growing. This is actually a lima bean plant. When our youth services did the grab-and-go bags for fairy tales, one of the things that they included was a lima bean for a Jack and the Beanstalk gardening project. Well, our youth services didn't know what to do with their example lima bean, so I took it out to the garden, I hardened it for a little bit, and then I transplanted it. Now with lima beans, it's actually not a good idea to transplant them, to grow them from seed inside and then transplant them. Their roots are very, very sensitive and don't like to be touched or messed with. They're better to sow directly outdoors if you want to grow lima beans. I didn't really have a choice, but it looks like it's been doing well. I planted it a week ago and it's already put out some new leaves, and it seems to be doing really, really well right here. The lima beans that you grow in the stores, the dry lima beans, are a pole variety. There are two varieties, a bush variety and a pole variety. The pole variety will grow tall and needs to be trellised or staked in order to support it. That's why I put it in the trellised bed here, just to see if it would survive. And we're gonna see how well it grows. It grows well with broccoli. I did do the research, so this is actually going to work out really, really well. Okay, the last bed that I have to plant right now is going to be my cabbage. I've got my cabbage seedlings here. I'm going to be putting them in, and then I'll be finished transplanting most of my seedlings. I'm going to put the green onions out in a little bit, but because it's starting to rain, which is why I'm actually not going to be watering the garden right now. Because if you look at the sky, it is really a perfect day to plant your fall veggies. It's overcast, it's cooler today, and nature's going to do my watering for me. Thanks for joining us today as we talked about thinning out our seedlings, hardening the seedlings and getting them ready to go outside, and then transplanting them and planting them in our raised garden beds. Again, if you have any questions, ask a librarian, because here at Forsyth County Public Library, we know books.